This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
Tracey-Ann Rose shares fundamental truths and timeless wisdom in this podcast interview. She beautifully states that our intuition guides us in the right direction. It is only through embracing our desires and acting from a space of authenticity that we are able to achieve real and lasting success. It is when we connect with our intuition that we can express ourselves clearly and align ourselves with opportunities that truly resonate with us. She adds that the divine expresses itself through us. There is divinity within each and every one of us. Our ability to create, transform, and accept ourselves is unlimited when we accept this simple truth. The power of taking a stand for our own divinity is a powerful anchor for success. Valeria interviews Tracey-Ann Rose. She is an intuitive business coach, writer, and certified Reiki master teacher. She helps women of color coaches and business owners notice and overcome the energetic barriers holding them back from reaching their goals in business and in life. She uses her energy reading gifts, BS in psychology from the University of Georgia, and her love of astrology to empower women of color to create sustainable businesses that honor who they are at soul level while building financial freedom. Meet Tracey-Ann at TraceyAnnRose.com. Here's the interview with Tracey-Ann Rose.
In your own words, who is Tracey-Ann Rose?
Well, Tracey-Ann Rose is a cycle breaker, a healer, a lover of nature. We were speaking about this a little bit earlier, a lover of literature, of communication, and really of deep connection to not only the self, but to others. And of course, intuition. I also like to just refer to, the divine as the universe, being truly connected to all of those things. I'm a lover of that.
Tell me about it. Yes. Being able to not just become aware of, but knowledgeable about the interconnectedness of it all. It's just incredible. It changed everything because it changed the way we see ourselves in this reality, and we see others in the environment. It's just incredible. That's amazing is the word that I can. Incredible, amazing. And you see, that's what I feel is in a way a sign of being in touch with our intuition or being spiritual per se. Mm-hmm. It's when we kind of see everything with fresh eyes. It's nothing's really fixed psychologically. So we are always kind of navigating reality with this seeing things anew and finding it's almost like a sense of joy in that.
Yeah,
that's how I feel. So I would love to hear from you from the get-go. The topic is how to manifest money in meaningful relationships with your intuition. So the concept of intuition, how to describe what that is, Tracey-Ann. And I would love to hear an example from you too.
Oh, yes. So intuition, it is really made up of three components. The first being body wisdom. So that's your gut instinct, your gut reaction to things. It will also show up as physical reactions. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but you'll be maybe close to someone that you don't necessarily you're not connecting with very well, or feel some sort of dissonance, and you'll want to pull away physically. That's our body's way of speaking to us through intuition, even our emotions. And as you were saying, joy is an indicator of something being in alignment with your soul, with your purpose, with your journey on this planet. Two other components: insights. So insights are those sudden downloads of wisdom that we get that seem to come out of nowhere, and they usually occur in a flow state. So when you're doing something that you love, that has you engaged with your senses, that's a big part of being in a flow state. And then you suddenly just have all of these ideas come to you that connect the dots. And that's another point of intuition. And the last one is a group. It's signs, themes, and patterns. So you can find this with astrology, synchronicities, in noticing reoccurring themes in your life and maybe even in the lives of others, or it could be as simple as something on TV, honestly. I feel intuition shows up in these amazing ways. And one of my favorite examples, or I guess a most recent example that I'm really still excited about and kind of reeling from, is I've always loved literature. It's been my favorite subject since I was a child. I started reading at 2 and took, several extra literature classes in school. And I was starting to feel this inclination to write a book. And it was feeling a little bit heavy for me. I was thinking, oh, I know myself. I have this tendency to overthink. I'm going to want it to be perfect. Maybe I'm not ready to write a book. But then I kept hearing, oh, this person just recently wrote a book. And then somebody in a coaching program that I'm a part of, they joined, and they help other coaches write books. And I thought, oh, all this is very interesting, but none of it felt quite right yet. So I waited, and just as the universe works, I was also interested in doing breath work. I went to a breath work session at a conference, and turns out the leader of that breath work session was also leading a retreat in Sedona that was all about breath work and book writing. And so of course I had to join. I could not say no to that. And so I'm co-authoring a book now, which will come out later this year.
Wow. What a beautiful example. Yes. So in a way too, Tracy, and intuition has a lot to do with listening, right? Being open, listening, curious. I have heard before, because I have asked this question here so many times, but the answer that really caught my attention was that intuition, it always leads us to a place of growth, and it feels really right. Perhaps not entirely good in a sense of happy, but it feels right. It feels like we are living our truth, that we are in the right direction in the sense of having that sense of purpose and mission. It's so the idea that I got was that intuition is connected to positivity, to love, to something that is beneficial to us humans, but not just humans personally, but in the sense of universal. It's good for us personally, but also for our community, for our environment, the earth.
Yes.
So it's never always about the individual. It's always connecting us back to what we really are, which is this one essence. There's no separation there. So that's what that really resonated with me when I heard that. Does it resonate with you, this idea of intuition being something positive and loving?
Yes, and especially now as we're in the age of, or we're entering the age of Aquarius. Of course, there's a lot of debate about that amongst astrologers, but we're in this particular phase, Pluto in Aquarius, and it really exemplifies everything that you were just saying about how our individual unique qualities inherently benefit the collective. And when we allow ourselves to really accept all of ourselves, what we may consider bad or good or quirky, just all of it, when we embody that and we don't have fear around it, but we just have a sense of acceptance, that's really when we step into our power. And to me, that acceptance is the doorway to love, not only for ourselves, but for the rest of the collective. If we can really look at each other as unique expressions of the divine, we can have so much compassion and a willingness to grow and collaborate with one another, rather than if we're looking at each other from a place of judgment and separation.
Yes, a billion times to that. Yes. That's an amazing topic in itself. The idea that we are instruments of universal wisdom, universal intelligence, instruments of God, instruments of life itself. So in a way, we are not really, we have no choice, but kind of be that. So I wonder where this sense of choice comes from that you just mentioned. Of course, I have experience, so many of us, we do all the time, that we, push away things that we don't kind of get in the way of ourselves. So would you say that it's coming from the identification with the false self, as I'm looking for a different term, but I found this one, or it's something else. The ego, it's another concept. So how do you explain that?
I think it's a mix of things, but I really feel like it comes down to what we claim as an identity. Something else I've really been playing with is that identity is fluid. We can always make a choice on who we want to be. But I think when we embody our higher self, that's when we're making the choice to accept all of us. Like, for example, I have a very childlike nature, which can, sometimes I'm like, oh, yay. Like, I'm so glad that I made this choice that to others might seem like a whim, but to me, it's truly embodying my soul's purpose. And of course, there are other times where it does feel a little bit more challenging. But I've realized when I do just accept the fact that that's part of me, other people gain a benefit from it. It has broken cycles in my family. I have a very traditional Jamaican family, and for so many years, the rhetoric was that, there are very traditional gender roles. And as a parent, I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe in that. And I've never forced that upon my children. And initially I was fearful of like, oh, how are my parents going to respond to this? They have embraced it wholeheartedly. They no longer balk at something that may be seen as non-traditional when it comes to gender. They're very open. They're very accepting of my children. But if I hadn't been willing to embody that part of myself, my family would never have that experience. My sons wouldn't know unconditional love on that level if I had held back.
Wow. What an amazing and insightful example. So it is embracing the wholeness of us. It's not trying to push away parts of us that need to be expressed. That's interesting because some of us have the belief system that we are supposed to be only good, or only we are supposed to do anything to avoid conflict. So if we do that, then we are good. We're considered good people. And I think I read about you on, I think you said reformed people pleasing, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Recovering people pleaser. Yes.
That's recovering. That's me too. Oh, my God. So in a way, gosh, I want to get to the topic of what you do as an intuitive business coach. But before that, I can't help it, but I would love to hear more about this idea of choice. So being the whole of us, does it have to do with this story that we want to tell? Because I have heard that before too, that we are here to tell a story. In the end, it's just a story anyway. So we're just creating this whole, let's say, play, this movie of our lives and our relationships and purpose and mission and all that. So I'm wondering what's the connection between that, this idea of creating our own story, and make it a really good one if we can, because I heard of that too, that some of us are not able to kind of, let's say, stop. We're not able to, what's the word? It would be better an example that I heard recently, also incredibly insightful, that karma has to do with exactly with that. There's the extent of choice, the idea of choice. So if a very heavy, let's say, rock, it's rolling down a hill, I mean, it would be really tough if somebody asked you or me to stop that. We wouldn't be able to stop it. So that person that I interviewed recently, his name is Dr. Ravi, he said, so karma has to do with destiny, which has to do with the idea of creating our own story. So if we are powerful enough to stop the destiny of our body minds to from doing what it's programmed to do, then we might be able to create an amazing experience here. But if we can't do that, then we are just kind of living the destiny of body-mind. And that would be okay too if we have the understanding that we are not the body-mind only. So I'd love to hear from you if that was that clear to you in a way, Tracey-Ann? Or
Yes, it was intriguing. I'd never thought about it that way, but I resonate with it. So with choice, what was coming up to me as you were speaking is I do believe that we have like a destiny inherently when we incarnate. I believe personally in reincarnation, and that we create a soul contract essentially about what lessons we are coming earthside to learn, what skills, qualities, strengths, perceived pitfalls or faults that we are going to embody, and who we're going to learn these lessons from. And I believe that, yes, our karma is sort of what is the story, but our choices are how the story plays out. So I believe, there are certain people, especially born very close to eclipses. If you're born within 3 days of an eclipse, you are made to be someone who's very powerful and influential when it comes to the collective. But how you do that is up to you, is what I believe.
Right. So there is this component of personal will in a way. I would say personal uniqueness, right? More than will. Personal uniqueness, because all body minds, they are unique. Although we are one essence, body minds, they're different. Wow. I'll just hold on to this topic here. Maybe I'll come back to it.
Yeah, choice is interesting.
God, yes. Yeah, because sometimes you just, catch yourself doing things and you don't know exactly why. And then I have heard about intuition being something like that too, that you can't really explain why you're doing certain things.
Right.
That's the destiny part. That's the intuitive flow of body mind doing what it does. And it's amazing when we are able to observe that. Like, wait a minute, why? I mean, to me, that's incredible that we can become aware of something that it's so natural and so close to the experience of this reality. It's almost impossible to become aware of. But of course, I have become aware of in so many people like yourself. And spiritual teachers were my first examples of that they knew what they were here and what the body mind was doing, and they are not really pushing anything away.
Very true. I will say, like you said, sometimes it feels impossible to almost like wrap our heads fully around what's happening. But I do feel we are most in touch with our intuition as children. And when we reflect back on that time, it's just it's so clear. Like I remember leading group meditations as a child and not knowing what meditation was, but knowing I need to hold hands with my friends and tune into nature. It was innate. And so, like you're saying, it's not necessarily something that we can know in the fully intellectual sense, but it is a part of our being inherently.
Yes, that's it. So it's not knowable because we can't explain intellectually, as you said, but it can be realized. I mean, it's just so obvious, right? Because it's being expressed here now. So that's just very fascinating to me that the mind cannot comprehend, but something in us, it's in touch with that realization of this being the fulfillment of a destiny of life itself, of God, per se. So talk to me about the work that you do as an intuitive business coach. What is the process, and how did you choose to do what you do these days, Tracey-Ann?
It's been a journey. It's been very interesting. I was initially an actor. It was very, and I think honestly, most people who come to the entertainment industry, they want to be seen and they want to have a large impact. And because of our society, we don't really see healers or many healers having the impact that we wish to create in the world. So we're like, well, I'll be a singer, I'll be an actor, I'll do something that way, and then I can help people. So initially I was an actor. I was not happy with the representation of Black women in media, and I did not want to be a part of it. I wanted to change things where we could see each other, all different people from all different backgrounds with that compassion and understanding. So I thought, okay, I will pivot to writing, and that way I will be able to, have more control over the story. That was my initial thought, and I did really well in that arena, but I came up against the same obstacles of it was almost as though dynamic representation was something bad, that people didn't want to expand their minds in that way. And so I thought, okay, well, what is something that I know I can do for hours that fills me with joy? So intuition, once again, like what's that thing that brings me pleasure, joy, and just where I lose track of time. I'm in that flow state, and that just feels right in my body. And it was energy reading initially. And so I did several hours of energy reading for different individuals. And when I was getting the feedback, 2 weeks to about 2 months, they were all saying that they had had massive shifts in their careers. And it clicked for me. Okay, so this is how I'm meant to marry the physical with the spiritual, is to show people that embodying all of their self actually enables them to have more financial freedom, more time freedom, so that they're able to do those things that they love, like, build global community, travel, spend time with loved ones, and feel safe and secure in doing that impactful work of breaking cycles, of showing people new ways to interact and to live. So once I got that feedback, I said, okay, universe, I'm listening to you loud and clear. I will help people embody their uniqueness to have a business that makes them money that they love, that they absolutely are in love with and feel so good and on a daily basis. So currently that is what I help my clients with. I help them get in touch with their intuition, but we start now as a gateway with astrology, because that's a little bit more mainstream, where people can say they know their sun sign, where they may not know, if they're clairvoyant or not. So we start with their big three in astrology, which is sun, moon, and rising. And we use those three signatures to create a business that will naturally support them and feel very good in their body and very aligned with their purpose on earth.
Mm. Wow. I love that. What's not to love about the concept of that you call it soul-centered success?
Yes.
Yeah, that really caught my attention immediately because that's a spiritual idea. Again, goes back to spirituality, and because everything is spiritual, right? There's nothing that it's not really.
I
What is
agree.
not spiritual? Is that how you define success these days, Tracey-Ann? Following in your
So
heart. So,
I do. I think that's a huge part of success. I really believe in holistic success. So I believe following your heart, living in alignment with your destiny, your karma, your soul's purpose, and also recognizing that we do live in this physical world and we need resources in order to create the changes that we truly want to see on a larger scale. And so it's really trusting that we can fulfill all three of those components to live a life that feels grounded, aligned, and is, well, I think, and this is interesting because I do feel that the spiritual community, we like to focus on the other, but I think we need to really focus on ourselves. And that's part of why I like people creating a business around themselves and what feels good, because when we feel good, we can serve others. We can't pour water from an empty cup, right?
true. So true. That's, well, it's another topic in itself. Self-love. That's a big one. It
Yes.
feels so, again, intuitive, natural to do that, but we don't. I have not done that for most of my life, really. And I would say that what didn't help was my childhood, being a trauma survivor and all that. But then again, I don't. Yeah, I have to consider that as a factor because
Mm-hmm.
some of us have been affected deeply by others, and that's why that's the lens that we see the world. We can't. For so long I couldn't really. I feel like I didn't have a choice. I was
Mm-hmm.
just watching the body mind do these things that were not in alignment with the heart, but I couldn't really stop doing them.
I
Being,
can
being
totally relate.
you do, yeah,
Yeah, well,
yes,
absolutely. I think most of us can. Especially, I think, we have some of these experiences that they call big T trauma, which are widely accepted as forms of trauma. But we also have these other more subtle forms of trauma that we all live, or a lot of us live through. Um,
yeah.
and it's described as CPTSD. And so I do work with a lot of trauma survivors
Mm,
because as a coping mechanism, and I include myself in that number as a trauma survivor. As a coping mechanism, we often hide some parts of ourselves that we believe was the cause, like what precipitated the trauma,
mm,
and
mm,
that is we put ourselves in a cage basically to protect ourselves, but it also
mm,
stops us from having these deeper connections and for actually being seen and accepted for those same things that we have come to fear about ourselves. And
mm,
that's another big part of what drives me of like, yes, let's acknowledge what you're going through, and let's find support so that you do feel safe and you do feel secure being more visible, because it does come up in business. That fear of visibility, that fear that will somehow lead to another trauma, essentially. So we do a lot of work with regulating the nervous system. That's always the first step when I'm taking people into learning their intuition and how it presents for them uniquely. Self-regulation is always the first piece, because without that, we are more likely listening to our societal conditioning or anxiety.
mm. Yes, yes, and creating all those protection mechanisms, right?
Yes.
Um, wow, that's wonderful to know that you work with trauma survivors too. And one of the things that I have to bring to this conversation, I talked to you off record about watching some of the videos on wildlife life, the
Yes.
lions and the animals in the wild. And just yesterday, and it's becoming almost like what do you call it, an obsession thing. Like, what's happening here? Why am I watching these documentaries? But anyway, yesterday I was watching these lions, lionesses with the cubs, with the babies, and the story of them growing, on a journey together to survive. Every day presents new challenges and all that. And then I was following the story. It was a 2-hour documentary. And I watched, I think, part one 3 days ago, and then I finished yesterday. And then something in me created this connection with them. So I was watching this, the family of lions, like almost as part of me. And it was a strange feeling. But then something happened that really kind of brought some feelings, and I started crying. That's exactly what you said here about, trauma and then protecting ourselves. So that's what I did for most of my life. I was trying so hard to protect myself that I created a lot of disconnection, and I couldn't really connect with anyone deeply because I was so afraid of being too close, so hurt to be. It makes me emotional now, but gosh, I didn't expect that. But then I watched this, the babies, and one of them was killed by a lion attack. Lions, male lions, young lions, trying to take over the pride, the herd of the group of lionesses, and then the first thing they do is to kill the babies because they want to have their own. So they attacked them, and then one of them died. But it didn't happen like that, where they didn't show, the narrator didn't say that he died. He just showed him after the attack in the morning. They were all the other ones, because they had 3 other babies and the 2 mothers, and they started playing together, because it's amazing how fast they forget, right?
Wow.
Trauma like that. They survived, most of them did, but one did not. And they were not aware of it because he was hiding behind the bushes. And we just see his face. The camera showed his face, and he was not playing like the others. He didn't show any interest. So he was far away. And then he started to retreat himself and went back into the bushes. He was badly hurt. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, Tracy, and I just kind of connected with that so deeply. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is. So my family, my husband, he also really enjoys spirituality, and so he has more shamanic gifts. So meaning, like, he connects more with the animals, spirit, animal energy. So we believe that each animal has a blessing, a message for us, a way to more deeply connect with ourselves. So it feels like that was part of what you just experienced, was realizing, like, oh, wow. And to me, the lion, especially the lioness, is very much okay with rest, okay with being, but very protective and very nurturing. And even the children, like you said, their ability to process. I'm sure they were even in the play processing on some level what they were experiencing. And if we could learn to stop hiding, which you have this beautiful platform where you let people shine and tell their stories, and you nurture their unique qualities and their gifts that they're giving to humanity. It's so interesting to see those parallels of coming out from hiding and seeing that there is still joy here, there's still beauty.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for bringing that up to shamanism, because that's something that for some reason, was brought up in Brazil. And I remember I grew up with rituals and all that around me, but I never really understood them. I never really practiced them in a sense of with that deep awareness of what I was doing. But I grew up around shamans. So that is really interesting what he's saying. It's so true. hiding. So the hide has to do with protection. So seeing that baby lion hurt, going back, isolating himself from the herd, from the family, and eventually dying, of course. Of course, he's protect himself from predators, right? Because they could smell the blood and come. But probably, well, I can't rationalize in that sense. Knowing, I think the only instinctual reason was really, of course, he was hurt, so he knew that, and he just backed and went deep into the bushes. But all of the other lions kind of acknowledged him one by one after he died too.
Wow.
So I was just wondering if in this hiding process, that I went through, hiding for so long, if a part of me just died there.
It's
because that baby lion just made me cry so hard. And I went to sleep and then started crying again just by thinking about it, and then it just stopped. That was interesting to observe, because I'm always observing the responses of body mind.
Me too. I would say when it's interesting because I don't feel we ever fully lose parts of ourselves, but I do feel they transform. And death is, to me, a transformation process.
Yes.
It alchemizes our energy and sometimes into new ways that we don't immediately recognize. But I would say yes, and yes, and there was probably a death period of maybe a quality that baby lion cub represents for you. But I do feel like you're embodying it in a new way. And this is just kind of me picking up on energy. I'm not in your energetic field, but just I have a little channeling. So I just wanted to share if you're comfortable with that.
Yes, of course. Yes.
So it feels like your curiosity is that rebirth, your willingness to engage with so many new people and really you're so open-hearted in all of your conversations, and you deeply connect. And so I feel like, yes, maybe a version of that quality of you has passed, but it has been transformed and transmuted into something that you can now use at this stage of your life. And of course, it will continue to grow and evolve. That is the nature of being alive. But just knowing that it does come from a place of wholeness, and the word rightness comes to me. Like, I hope that makes sense. But that's what I'm feeling. Like it was right for you to have the experience of having that quality when, you were embodying that baby cub, but it's also right to have the experience that you're currently having now. It's just an evolution, a transformation, a rebirth process. Does that make sense?
It does. It very much does. That's my understanding of my big picture understanding that, the contents of the mind, it never goes away. So we lose the body here, but then the mind, which really is the part that we highly identify with, right? Thoughts, memories, that will move on to a new body, right? I don't know about transforming because a lot of or all of that will be just, let's say, transported, not really transformed, right, to a new body. Unless... my understanding now is that unless we become deeply aware, and not even that, we realize that we are one with experience, one with everything that is happening or didn't happen. That's when, and everything that we see through the body, mind, that's when then nature takes over. The body stays here. It goes back to nature where it belongs, and also the body, the mind's content also will be dissolved here. But that's, I guess that I don't know what. No one really can prove that. I guess there's no evidence for that. We do have evidence for reincarnation, mind continuation, with reincarnation and all, but not. That would be impossible to do too, right, Tracey-Ann, to prove that. We're still here without the body and mind, that we are infinite, we are timeless, spaceless.
it's interesting. I do feel we are infinite, but I also feel like it's so interesting that our body, I believe that we can have our consciousness here and now, but I do believe that it can also be projected throughout time. So I
Mm.
have a very
Yeah.
lofty idea of like the spirit and its abilities. I don't think as humans we're able to fully understand, but there have definitely been times and situations where I've felt the presence of a loved one who's passed or received a message from a loved one who's passed, and it's helped me so much, with like exponential growth of trusting a decision that maybe I was feeling uncertain about because of whatever my mind was telling me, and then having that energy come to me and say, hey, no, you're on the right track. It has greatly shifted the trajectory of my life in many circumstances.
Yes, yes, yes. So it is a process of evolution, isn't it, in a way, to
Truly.
be able to understand, be able to experience that felt understanding of, transcendence of the timeless of the infinite, which is really, if we really, really stop to contemplate and reflect upon, it's so obvious, that the infinite is having finite experiences. That's it. So everything is, in essence, the infinite. Because there's no way the infinite can express itself but through the finite
I
body,
love
minds,
that.
natural world, and all this universe, and all the universe right out there. So we're almost at the end. I have. I want to make a comment about about that feeling again of the baby cub who died. I know I'm going back to that. I can't believe it. The feeling. It was a feeling of the cry. I kind of got the message from the subconscious, or I don't know what that is. That emotional display was the longing for the joy that I had lost, that I could never experience for years. And I really deeply wanted to do that, go back to that place of joy as I remember as a child. And then for years, I was just seeing people playing, and now other people doing what they were doing and having fun, but I couldn't do that. So I think the death of that baby lion kind of brought that memory back. Because I saw him die, and then I saw the other cubs playing, having fun, and he was hiding, and then he died. So that was just like, oh, that was me. That was definitely me. Isn't that fascinating how the brain can do that?
Oh yeah, it makes those connections so quickly. We don't, and usually we dismiss them of like, oh, I'm just emotional. It's no, I'm processing something important. And we're currently going through a Pluto retrograde, so it makes sense too, because Pluto is the planet of life, death, birth, rebirth, transformation, and power. So to see that play out, it's probably reminding you of some things from the past, like you said, but also how your position has changed since then.
Yes, right. Because as I mentioned, I was crying for probably about maybe a minute, and then it stopped. Everything just like, oh, this is my reality now. And then it felt really good. Like, oh, being here now, and in a way transformed. But it's also fascinating how, in order to let's say experience wholeness, it's fundamental that we are in touch with parts, right? Even the ones that felt that it feels dead already, or they still. I don't know. There's interesting idea of just not pushing away anything, in kind of flowing with feelings and emotions, and letting, like water, isn't it? I love water. Maybe that represents that too. There's something about it. See, everything is symbolic, right, Tracey-Ann?
Absolutely.
We are not just having this conversation here as a conversation for a podcast to get results and all that, views. It's this something else happening that it takes listening, really deep listening.
And even what you were saying, if you don't mind me sharing your sun sign, do you mind?
Yes.
Okay. So when you were saying, like, as an Aquarius, the sign is a water bearer. So I thought that was so interesting. And so you're allowing all the emotions to flow and observing them as they flow without the judgment and just the acknowledgement of, like, yes, this is my human experience, and this is telling me about how I'm experiencing things right now and how I've shifted throughout my life. And I just thought that was beautiful to just to see it play out so plainly here. It's a treat.
Yes, that's also a display of what you do, right? Beautifully. That's intuition doing its work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Powerfully. Thank you so much again for your presence in our reality. Very much needed.
Thank you.
It's that heartfelt presence. Thank you. So I want to mention your website, Tracey-Ann-Rose.com. And also I went there and I saw you offer a transformative 6-month intuitive career coaching program. So that's I saw that as a service. I didn't see anything else. So I'll ask you the question. Do you offer one-on-one sessions, group, corporations as well?
So I predominantly do one-on-one sessions, and that's just because I like creating a safe container for that person to start feeling comfortable being themselves. Right. And then in the future, I would love to do group where, just build community where other people can see this is what's on the other side of me doing this work. Like, yes, you can make money and yes, you can feel more secure in your body, but if we're not having that deep sense of connection, there's really no point, in my opinion. So in the future, I would love to open up to group. Right now, I'm doing one-on-one, and it's been such a treat to work with people on such an intimate level.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful, isn't it? It's a soul treat, as I say. I just found that term. All of a sudden, I felt so kind of open and wholehearted, kind of, with one of my guests, I think, which I often do. But then that word came out. What a soul treat. I remember saying to her, I met her in person, actually. She came to see me in Florida. And then it felt so amazing. Oh, I have another quick question for you, Tracey-Ann.
Yes.
So as of the moment, your ideal clients are women of color. Is that correct? Or are you open to everyone else?
I am open, but I predominantly, so I work with women of color as well as white women. I just wanted to emphasize women of color so that they know there's a space for them. Having my own wounds of growing up in predominantly white spaces where I was seen as other or less than, it was very harmful to myself as a child and even as an adult in the acting industry. So I wanted to create a special space for women of color to feel seen. But I do also have white clients, because anyone who believes in that mission of having global community and authentic connection and really embodying the whole self, that's who I want to work with.
Yes, that's wonderful to know. And I have to make a comment about that. The separation concept again, because that's coming from the mind. It's something that has been, it's a construct.
Yes.
The idea. I mean, we see everything. It's so obvious that the natural world is comprised of diversity. Everything. It's look at the animals, the trees. Everything they look different. Nothing looks the same. So I have to say that to me is that besides violence, which comes from that as well, discrimination and racism and all that. That is true ignorance, I have to say. To me, there's nothing more that I could consider more ignorant than that, which basically not in a pejorative way, but in a way of ignoring truth. What is here that's so obvious? Everything is one essence. And so, I heard something beautifully. I know it sounds like philosophy or poetry, but that's my guiding principle. This is God's dream, one. And the other thing that I heard about it, what we've expressed in this, is that everything is happening in God. So God is the substance of everything. That is so obvious. Yes, it's so obvious to me. It's so obvious to me. And not seeing that, to me, it's considered, in not just to me, but a lot of the spiritual philosophies that I belong to, ignorance. That's ignoring what is real, what is true. So I feel for what you're saying, and I can't say enough. I remember having the same kind of, the beginning, almost like the start when I came to the United States from Brazil. I was about 18. And I remember seeing that, the separation, Spanish people together. And then I saw African Americans, and then I saw whites. That never made sense to me. No. But I was so spiritually confident that I just kind of ignored that. And I just made friends with everybody, just connected and tried. Yeah.
We have a lot of parallels in that way. Yes.
So it's interesting to hear that from you in the very end of a conversation here. But I have to say that. So thank you so much again, and we'll be in touch. I would love to be in touch. Take good care of yourself for now, Tracy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Tracey-Ann Rose and her work, please visit Tracey-AnnRose.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.